History is not only what has happened in the past. History is also how we as Christ followers choose to live in the present as we care for our Christian and non-Christian sisters and brothers. Today, our guests will share their faith stories and narratives of how they are from different faith traditions, but yet have a vision for a more humane and just world. Please stay tuned. Welcome to Perspectives on Faith and Culture. My name is Karen Crozier, and today I'm joined by Doug Kalungo, who is Executive Director for Kalungo for Congo, KFC. Welcome to the show. Next to him is Mr. Nadar Ali, who is a retired Fresno Unified School District principal. Both gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Please, beginning with you, Doug, what is your faith tradition, and how would you communicate that
Well,
for the viewing audience?
first of all, wanted to thank you for the opportunity to be here. It is a privilege to speak on behalf of faith. My name is Doug Kalungo, as you have introduced me. I was born and raised in the Congo. I'm coming from Mennonite tradition, MB, and we believe in peacemaking as a way to resolve problems and making better path for human being to making smart choices and smart decisions. So coming from that type of background, it has helped me to grow to be a Christian who understand that we live in a world where we have people who are coming from different backgrounds, and we have to love our brothers and sisters regardless of what they stand for or what are their beliefs. So he has taught me to accept non-believers and believers and people from different faiths, and that traditionally shaped me to even to give me a better perspective on life, not just on life, but on leadership, more importantly, how to be a Christian, a young Christian man who's a leader, who can inspire other men, other people. So I think the background is so important because of my Mennonite background being a peacemaker. So.
Thank you, Doug, for your answer and giving us such a historical depth and context of your faith tradition. Nadar, please share your particular faith tradition.
Thank you, Dr. Crozier. Islam is a very simplistic religion, and Muslims practice the religion of Islam. Islam means peace, literally. And the religion of Islam is so simplistic until the unlettered Bedouin can grasp it with no problem, as well as an intellectual or a scholarly person. So that's how simplistic the religion is. We believe in one God, whose proper name is Allah. Allah in Arabic just simply means the God, the supreme being. So we practice this religion, and we pray only directly to God. We don't have any intermediaries, and we answer to God, and we are responsible for everything that we do. Any sins that we commit, we have to answer to this God. But the religion is now practiced by over 1 billion people around the world.
Thank you. So a similarity that I see is the peace component between the Mennonite Christianity and Islam. When you look at your own faith identities and faith narratives, please share, beginning with you, Doug, what were some key moments in history that have shaped your faith and faith commitments?
Well, thank you. Well, I think it's, as you might know, I'm coming from a culture, the African culture actually has gone through a lot of changes and a lot of transition. We had people came to colonize Africa, that we had people came to preach the gospel of Christ. And whatever these people were making as choices and decisions somehow affected us in terms of being a Christian than being a citizen of, if not of Congo, for the entire continent. But I'll stay in the Congo context to be more specifically and clear. When my grandparents would preach the gospel of Christ, that's how they got to become Christians. And at the same time, some of them were going through those negative effect of the colonizer who came to free Africa somehow. or with the time of civilization, or the same people came to preach the gospel. So it was, some of them will use the Bible to preach, and they will use the Bible maybe to misuse people. In Congo, we have bad experience with the Belgium who had Congo under their pocket for more than 100 years, and who were pretty much exploiting the country and the people. So this kind of behavior that we disposed many years ago affected some of us as young men, as we learning history, and we hearing people that were preaching the gospel were the same people that were killing and stealing and taking what we have in terms of resources such as mineral, which would be diamond, copper, zinc, and so on. So I think those kind of things that happen in the past, sometimes if you are not a strong Christians, they can affect you because you are listening and studying in school about Christian people who were doing this type of behavior. So I think that's where the gospel is more powerful, because regardless of what I have done in the past, their behavior doesn't affect my faith, but instead their behavior even give me the more reasons to love those who are mispracticing the Bible, so which makes you a good Christian. So it's not easy, but when you go through that process, it's like Christ is helping you. Based on the scriptures, the Bible say, count in joy when you go through tribulation and trial. So I think those trial and tribulation have helped some of us to come up stronger Christians, so we can be an asset to our society. Yeah.
So it becomes more of critiquing the Christianity that was brought to you and seeing the real depth of who Jesus was.
Definitely.
Thank you. Nadar, please share your particular experience of how your faith and faith commitments have been shaped by various moments in history.
I think a real important one, and many people don't know this, but in 1999, Pope John Paul II invited Imam Warthin Muhammad, who is the son of Elijah Muhammad, if you all know the background there, because the Warthin Muhammad really was the one who brought the Quran and the Sunnah religion to African Americans. Well, Imam Warthin Muhammad is an African American whose ancestors were slaves. Pope John Paul II invited Warthin Muhammad to come and give the keynote message at the Vatican before 100,000 guests. And Imam Warthin Muhammad delivered the message, and you might wonder, why did he invite Imam Warthin Muhammad? That's because Imam Warthin Muhammad promoted unity between the Christians, the Jewish, and the Islamic people. He promoted this unity to such an extent until it caught the Pope's attention. So he was invited. Now, can you think of anybody in the history of the United States who have ever given the keynote address at the Vatican? Since this is African American History Month, it's very appropriate for you to know that this African American son of slaves actually gave this talk before these 100,000 people from all over the world. And it's because his record of promoting collaboration and unity and dialogue between Christians, Jews, and Muslims.
So share a little bit more about how does that help to inform your faith commitments and faith narrative?
To know that Islam, which I was not born, but my parents raised me as a Christian. I belonged to the Church of God in Christ, and I was converted to Islam. And after being converted to Islam, it sort of opened up a whole new world. And this showed me that Islam, like being, instead of a localized or sectional religion, Islam was worldwide. And for the Pope to recognize Islam through an African American that brought it to the African Americans here, it added faith that Islam must be a powerful religion that the Pope would recognize, and let this speaker, this Imam, this Muslim, give the keynote address.
Today in the U.S., 2014, we are 50 years beyond the war on poverty that was declared by Johnson's administration. But yet we see socially, politically, and economically, black people are still at the bottom, the black masses. We have the greatest, as a country, greatest income inequality gap that has been since the Depression. So what are the various social and political and economic movements in history that your faith can inform and shape? And even though I didn't talk about the Congo, Doug, we could begin with you, and you want to share more about your context and even the connection between the U.S. and the Congo from your experience. How does your faith play into that?
Well, first of all, I believe in leadership that makes decisions that benefit the future generations. And I believe leaders have the moral obligations of making those type of decisions and those type of choices. Though leadership is not easy, we should recognize that sometimes it is hard to start projecting for the future. But I know in my context, in the African context, poverty is still enemy that people have to fight on the daily basis. And my hope has been to see a better Africa, a new Africa, which will give young people the chance to rise to the best of their abilities. And with that being said, it means we need to find work for people. And if people get jobs, so they can be able to provide for their families. Because for Kulungu, for Congo, for instance, for KFC, we believe that a man needs a job because a job produces an income. An income is saving, an investment. Investment produces growth, and growth reduces poverty. So that type of macroeconomic concepts is important for Africa to move forward when we have strong leaders in place who want to make those type of changes. Now, unfortunately, this hasn't been the case because in my case for Congo, it's been over 50 years since we had independence, but people still living in poverty. You know, IMF and World Bank, they have given so much money in Africa and throw a lot of money in the street, but it hasn't helped yet. So when I look at statistic in terms of the demography of people and how people are suffering, how people don't have jobs, and how mothers can't afford to feed their kids, and young people who are still on the street who have great abilities but just don't have opportunities, that breaks my heart. Why it breaks my heart? Because as many people have been called to leadership, I sense that the moral obligation of also giving back to the community. And looking at poverty, he has, through the lenses of spirituality, which would be Christianity, he has helped me to understand that whatever God gives me in terms of knowledge, my ability to go to school, the aptitude to study and pass classes and become a guy who has a vision, I think those aptitudes are important for one to make a step forward, which means as I'm thinking about leadership, when I'm looking at leadership through the lenses of hope.
Doug, please tell me, what do you mean by leadership through the lens of hope as you talk about how your faith informs various social and political movements and crises?
Well, I think hope is important for anybody, regardless of your social status or whether you want to be involved in leadership or not. Hope is the movement that keeps on pushing you, even when the times seem to be uncertain. It's the spiritual connection for believers, what we can call faith, the belief that we can hope even when the times seem to be uncertain. The idea that we can work hard and see a better future, that we're looking through spiritual projection, that there are better days ahead of us. And that hope for me is sustained by faith that I have through Christ. Well, the Bible will give you a definition of faith, which is believing in things that you can't see, but having the assurance that you'll get it. And for me, that's more than just the scripture itself, because I am the hope. I have lived the faith. A story of like myself growing up in Africa and coming out of poverty, coming to school to America, nothing in my family cash flow could predict that I could come to a private school like Fresno Pacific and finish. So it's because of the hope that made me believe that I could get a visa. The hope drove me that I could fly. The hope asked me to go to Pacific, one class after another. I came out of that school with a bachelor's degree. So it's the same hope that make me believe that when you're in a position of leadership, you can make a difference. You can be a hope for somebody else. And you can inspire a generation that can run a country.
Wow, you have a huge vision, brother. That is great. We're going to go to our break, and when we come back, we will have Nadar, who will share his perspective on how faith is informing the various social and political movements and issues within his context.
KNXT thanks all its loyal viewers and respected businesses who have supported your Catholic television station. Now you can support KNXT with program underwriting by having your name, your company's name, or organization associated with your favorite program. Detailed information about you or your company will appear before and after each program or day part you select. Keep the quality and spiritual message alive and make a difference. Call 559-488-7440 today or go online at knxt.tv to find out more about program underwriting on KNXT.
Welcome back to the show. I'm joined today by Doug Kalungu for Congo, as well as Nada Ali, who is a retired Fresno Unified School District principal, as we look at the relationship between history and faith and how people of faith traditions can be able to create a more humane and just future. Nada, please share how your faith informs the various social and political issues of today, such as racial oppression, mass incarceration, and disproportionate number of African Americans who end up in the prison system. What is it that your faith is doing to address some of these national and local concerns?
Well, one of the main emphases of Islam is education. And I think you mentioned about African Americans being in a lesser position economically and spiritually and otherwise. And we believe that if one prepares himself for life, that is through education. And if they are consistent and if they are obedient to their God, then one of the decrees is that you educate yourself, you study, and you work to inform yourself from the time that you are able to read until your deathbed. So one of the things that happened historically is you think about the Moors when they came into Spain. Now the Moors were Muslim, and they created this great, great society. And it was through, they had scientists, they had mathematicians, they had doctors, and all this was because they stressed education in their society. So I would say that in the United States, we have to really get back to the basic belief, and the family has to stress educating their child so that we can once more assume the height that we've been accustomed to through our history.
So we have education and we have leadership. Now, when we look at the relationship between Christians and Muslims, from your humble perspectives, what can be done for us to begin to heal the wounds that have kept us divided in the past? You could talk about it from your local context, from African context, whatever you feel you want to speak to in that. We'll begin with you, Nada.
I tell you, if you go back again, if you remember that the society in Granada in Spain, they had three religions there. It was Christianity, they had the Jewish religion, and the Muslims. And they all worked together harmoniously for 700 years. But they've shown that we can work together. So now if we come to today, I think we have to really study and learn about each other's religion. Don't go to TV to get a knowledge of Islam or to get a knowledge of Christianity. Don't listen to anybody. Go to the source. The Quran gives it an in-depth information on what Islam is. The Bible gives an in-depth information on Christianity, and the Torah gives an in-depth perspective on Judaism. So I think we have to study our religion, study each other's religion, and then come together with a good heart, a good spirit to work together. It has been done. It's been shown through history that Jews, Christians, and Muslims have worked together, and we can do it today. We almost have to do it because now, if we don't, they said if we don't work together as friends, we will all perish as fools.
Yeah, that is a very sad commentary on our present state, especially those of us who claim to be people of faith, of a transcendent God. Yeah, and Doug, what are your thoughts on how we can begin to collaborate to heal across our various religious differences?
Well, I think the ultimate goal between the Christian and the Muslim, they both want to serve God. And I think that should be our basis, since we all believe in there is a God and we're all supposed to serve him. I can speak more from a Christian perspective because I'm not really familiar more with the Islam side. But I think the Bible calls us to love each other and to love our enemies, to pray for the world, to make disciples. And I think this is even, as some preachers will call it, the Great Commission, which is Christ say, go into the world and make disciples. So I think that's important in us knowing who we are and how can Christian and Muslim work together. I think if we know that the scriptures, whether it's the Bible or the Quran, it's about God, and God is love, we're supposed to come together and love each other. The status quo in many countries right now, it's really critical because of the fight between the Muslim and the Christian. And I think we are fighting when we're not looking to each other through the lenses of hope or through the lenses of God, because God is love. Because it's very contradictory when you can claim to love God, but you can kill a human being for the sake of God. The Bible or the Quran, I don't believe, is asking anybody to kill for God. So I think we have some chances of praying and seeking God and trying to look into our spiritual life. Like, what are our motivation? Are we really serving God, or we want to fulfill our own flesh ambitions? Because I don't believe whether it's a Christian or the Muslim, when they're killing each other, hurting each other, that's glorifying God. So I think there is a big mistake. We should come together, love each other, and pray and seek God, and God going to show the best way to serve Him. So that's how I can see for those two.
So you're saying that the God that transcends both time and space, or
yes.
history,
Yeah.
is to be sought out, and if our hearts is really pure and aligned with that, we will find the creative solutions to deal with our present reality. Did I hear you correctly?
Yeah, definitely. Because that's true, because God is above Christianity or above Muslim, whatever it could be. And human beings sometimes are so occupied with those denomination stuff instead of serving God, which is easy loving God. You know, I think if you love your God, you love your neighbor, and you serve your God, I think that should be the ultimate goal of any Christian or any Muslim. That's how I can say it without being biased. So that's how I can.
Right, and when we look at that, two men who were prominent in the 60s as a Christian, as a Muslim, was Martin Luther King Jr. as a Christian minister, and then there was Malcolm X as a Muslim minister from the Nation of Islam. What do you think that these gentlemen, these religious leaders who were engrossed in the social crises of their day, say to us today who seek to create a more humane and just world? Let's begin with you, Nadar. What do you think that they would say to us from your perspective?
Well, I think even before the death of both Malcolm and Martin Luther King, they came together. And actually, Martin Luther King came to Chicago and met with Elijah Muhammad, who actually financed some of his missions. Now, a lot of people don't know about that because they kind of kept it between themselves. But even at that, they were working together. And I think if they were here today, Malcolm X, as you know, had converted to the Orthodox Islam, and he stopped teaching some of the teachings that were taught in the Nation of Islam. But he and Martin Luther King decided that they would work from both perspectives, because with Malcolm X, with his rhetoric and with some of his talk, they kind of drove some of the people that were against the rise of the African Americans to King. Then King could, and when King finally came around and started talking about other things but nonviolence, when he started talking about the war in Vietnam and other things that were socially unacceptable to him to speak of at that time, then you can see that things started to actually gel and come together. So I think they would be together today, speaking together. As a matter of fact, the Quran says that in the last days that Jesus, the prophet Jesus, and Muhammad would come together, we walking hand in hand. Now that does not mean physically they'd be walking down the street hand in hand, but it means that the two religions will come together, and just as the brother had said, there's one God, and that God is one worshipped by both religions. So you can't have any differences there. So with the understanding that there is one God and that we have to live together in peace, I think Martin Luther King and Malcolm X would collaborate with that.
What are your thoughts, Doug, on that question?
Well, I think these two persons are so important in history, whether not just in the history of America, but I would say across the globe, even I know they were African American, which means they were African. Their influence in America somehow have also gone in across Africa, because if you remember when Martin Luther was going through all those movements, civil rights and so on, this was the same time in Africa the wind of independence was going around. The countries after country and Africans were looking for independence. So Martin Luther had a perspective of approaching issues with a peaceful way, while Malcolm X had a different one. He believed in defending yourself, standing up for yourself, and then don't let anybody taking advantage of you. And then thought what Martin was doing was weak. You know, how we'll see it in young people language today is if you slap me, I slap you back. Martin said, if you slap me, I give you another cheek, which maybe is also shaped. If I would speak more on Martin Luther's side, I think his belief came from the Bible, as Christ say, if they slap you one cheek, give the other one.
Right, but how was that a more empowering stance from your understanding? To turn the other cheek, was it weak within the biblical text?
Well, if I'm looking through this issue through the lenses of Christianity, it's not a weak thing to do.
So why isn't it weak?
Because if you're a Christian, that means you're following Christ. And Christ is a leader. He's the one who told you to give your other cheek. So it was okay for me if I'm looking through the lens of spiritual. But if I look at it through different lenses of maybe me going to school, somebody slapping me, that there might be some different effect that can come out to place. So I can't say Martin was better than the other guy because of his approach or vice versa, but I think they were shaped by their faith. They were shaped by they belief. Martin was a Christian. Malcolm X was Muslim. So
Islam, yeah.
yes. So I haven't read much the Quran. I don't know what the Quran said, brother, about that issue when somebody slap you. I don't even know if it addresses it.
Yes, it addresses it.
All right, we're almost out of time, but the key thing that I wanted to bring out in the conversation is that Jesus' assertion to turn the other cheek was saying that I am human, because to be slapped on the backhand meant that they were equal. The Jewish peasant was equal to that Roman soldier who was dismissing them. And so therefore it becomes that creative resistance that King was about, and I think also that was the focus of Malcolm X. Thank you for watching today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
We take care and God bless.